Batman Caped Crusader is a very disappointing show. It's not a bad show at all, just disappointing. I had pretty high expectations coming in, considering this is made by Bruce Timm, one of the creators of Batman the Animated Series, which I consider to be one of the greatest TV shows ever made. Unfortunately, however, my expectations weren't met. There is a lot of stuff in this show that just gets under my skin, mostly with the writing. Now, before I get into why I was let down by this series, I do want to get into some positives. In terms of art style and animation, this was pretty good. I liked the noir style of everything, and it felt very classic and to Batman's roots, and the animation was very decent throughout. Hamish Linklater, I think that's how you pronounce his name, I'm sorry. He did a great job voicing for Batman. It felt very in line with Conroy's version while still being unique on its own. I think he nailed it. The music was really good as well, especially the theme song. And even though I don't think any of the episodes are truly great or amazing, and I do have a lot of issues with the series as a whole, which I'll get into, every episode was still very watchable. 4 episodes in particular I really enjoyed, but at the very least, the other 6 were decent. Alright, now let's get into everything that disappointed me. So, the characters in this show are just fine. In the main cast of characters, we have Batman, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, who honestly didn't leave much of an impression, Harvey Bullock and Flash, who are okay characters, but there are 2 very major characters who are super annoying, those being Barbara Gordon and Renee Montoya. Now, I have nothing against these 2 characters being in the show, but shit, they really overstay their welcome. Honestly, in some episodes, it feels like they get more screen time than Batman. And to make things worse, they are both super uninteresting. They both feel almost devoid of any character flaws. You could put a gun to my head and ask me to say one flaw about Barbara Gordon in this show, and I just wouldn't be able to tell you. These 2 also both end up carrying the plot on their own. It's not every episode that is like this, but it's still a lot. Like, I would say that only 3 of the 10 episodes feel like Bruce, Batman, is the main character. It's especially bad in episode 2 of this season when Renee Montoya pretty much does all the heavy lifting in terms of detective work. Like, she's the one that finds Clayface. She's the one that finds out his motives. Like, shit, there's even a scene where Batman watches her do the detective work. In my opinion, if you're gonna make a noir Batman series, Batman better be the guy uncovering the important pieces of the investigation. And again, I do not care that Renee Montoya or Barbara Gordon are in this show, but these 2 characters are paper thin and they take up way too much focus. I really want to like these characters, but after a while, I would just groan whenever they would appear on screen. With how much the show focuses on Barbara Gordon, I was getting really scared about the idea of a romance between her and Batman. Bruce Timm has this really weird thing for having these 2 characters together, and I am so happy that he never ended up doing that, because at points I was getting a little worried that this show was going to push Barbara into the direction of her being in some sort of bullshit relationship with Batman. The villains in this show are also just fine. Overall, I would say that Catwoman would be my favorite. She's the only villain besides Two-Face that actually has an interesting and entertaining dynamic with Batman. The female Penguin was a little weird, but she was okay. Firebug was pretty fun. Clayface was cool, but a little understated with his powers. I feel like they could have went a little more all out with his abilities, considering that this is the same show where a literal ghost is a supervillain. I was really excited also for Onomatopoeia, but he was super underused. Like, he had the potential to be a really cool and threatening villain, but he was just kind of there. Two-Face in this show was a pretty big letdown for me. It's hard to care about Harvey's downfall when throughout the entire series, up to the point of his fall, he's just been a total asshole. Compare his character from The Dark Knight or the animated series to this. The best versions of Two-Face start off his character as actually being likable, because he's supposed to be a tragic character. I should care about Harvey becoming Two-Face, but because Harvey just wasn't likable, I just didn't have any emotional stakes. I was also super annoyed by how underdeveloped his dual personality was. It's not built up cleverly at all, so when he becomes Two-Face, it just feels like the writers were obligated to feature the dual personality because, you know, that's his whole thing. I liked his character design though, and I thought that it was pretty creepy looking. It is weird though that the deformed side of his face is on the wrong side. Not sure why it's like that. One thing I'm very conflicted about with this whole show is honestly Batman himself. I really liked how in this show Batman had a strong on-screen presence. I also liked how often we see Batman actually saving people, because this is a superhero show. There's a great moment in episode 8 where he covers Natalia with his cape when the sun came up because the sunlight would kill her. Stuff like that does a great job of showing Batman's morals, and that scene in particular was especially good. Natalia did a lot of fucked up shit in that episode, but Batman isn't just gonna let her die like that. He's an understanding character. Unfortunately, Batman isn't so great with Alfred, and a lot of scenes with Alfred, Batman just comes off as kind of a dickhead. Like, he's strangely rude to Alfred, the man who raised him, the man who helped him become Batman. He's rude to Alfred, who's probably his most loyal ally out of anyone in the DC universe. In a lot of scenes, he doesn't even call Alfred by his first name. He just says Pennyworth, and it's treated as some huge moment when he actually calls him by his first name. Batman being mean to Alfred doesn't even have a purpose in the story or his own character, and this one moment of him being nice is just completely random. Like, okay, out of all the times for Bruce to be nice to Alfred, now is the time. There's also 2 instances of Batman just doing straight up unforgivable shit. In the first episode, he drives his Batmobile fucking like full speed into 3 guys, and then it's never elaborated on. Are they dead? Did you just kill them? I mean, you hit them pretty hard. The worst moment, and honestly, the worst moment in the entire show, by far, comes from the last episode. Batman picks up a gun and shoots it like 5 times around Flash's head. This is just horrible. First of all, I do not care that Batman doesn't kill Flash, and I don't care that he throws the gun away into the water afterwards. The mere fact that Batman picks up that gun and shoots, it's just wrong. Batman hates guns. It is a very big part of his character that he hates guns. In Batman Beyond, he's ashamed of himself just for picking one up in self-defense. He even quits being Batman because of this. So just seeing him pick up this gun just to scare Flash, it's just so frustrating because it goes against his character. It is almost universal that Batman hates guns. The only Batman stories that go against this are the shit ones. The show even tries to trick you for a couple of seconds and makes you think that Batman just killed Flash. Why? I'm sorry, but the scene is just genuinely awful. I cannot believe that they even thought this was a good idea. It's not a clever subversion of my expectations. It's gross. So yeah, I was disappointed in Capes Crusader. It has elements that were very good, but overall, a lot of things about this season just got on my nerves. The biggest problem with this show is just how the characters are handled. The character writing just really isn't up to par with what we've seen in the past. Barbara Gordon and Renee Montoya are boring characters with way too much screen time. A lot of the villains don't get enough time to prove themselves, and Batman himself is a little shaky.